So hi Louise.
Hiya.
Thanks for being interviewed by Bragbox.
No worries.
So could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, like what you do?
Okay, basically my name's Louise. I'm 26. I'm living in Bristol at the moment, and I've got a label called Food Hoods and another label called So That Jazz. Food Hoods are my own design of a detached hood, like this. And we've been going for 2 years, and we basically I do stalls on Brick Lane and Portobello Market. I also sell online, and I also run a festival stall selling my clothes and my hoods, and I've been doing all the festivals for summer. And I'm about to move to London and hopefully make it big up here.
Excellent.
That's about it for the minute.
Excellent. So where did this love for fashion come from?
Well, I've always been really creative. Always, I don't know, just loved fashion. I did fine art as a degree, and then through sort of fancy dress, basically I really love fancy dress. Bristol's quite a big fancy dress city. Made some fancy dress for festival a couple of years ago, which turned into making hoods, which turned into a full-blown business, and I'm just obsessed with 80s, sequins, colour, anything slightly unusual. Yeah, basically.
Can we actually have a closer look at the hood that you've got on at the moment? Because like
these are my new collection, festival collection.
Wow.
So then it goes up.
So where does your inspiration come from to make hoods?
Well, I think a lot of my sort of fashion is inspired by like raving and sort of that kind of like living the kind of fashion you make. Like Bristol's a really big like music culture and festival culture, and I think that influences a lot of what I do. Like, you know, when you're coming back from a rave and it's 6 o'clock in the morning and you know you didn't want to wear a jacket out but you want something cosy to protect you, kind of that kind of thing. And like, as I said, I love the 80s and you know that kind of style of clothing and anything really that's really bizarre and as much colour and as many things you can really wear at one time. It's quite big in my books.
So where do you get your materials from? You know, when you first started out, was it the fact that your family, you're surrounded by 80s clothing? I mean, where did this come from?
Not really. It's kind of just grown more and more since I've, like, basically the whole start of the whole business was from a really naive, accidental thing. As I said, I made this fancy dress. People really liked the hoods. Loads of people wanted to buy the hoods, and suddenly I ended up with a product that was selling really well. And then it's just being poor, going to charity shops, using loads of recycled material. Like, I'm quite big with sort of environmental conscience and you know things in the future. Like, I'd like to do go quite heavily into the recycling side or the sustainable sort of fabrics. But for now, it's just sort of charity shops. Fabric Land is my biggest sort of I go all the time. Shepherd's Bush Market and all the shops around there. It's just sort of keeping your eye out on what you can find, really.
So how many hoods have you got? Because there must be, your wardrobe must just be...
Me personally?
Yeah.
Me personally, I don't know, I've probably got about, not that many, 5 or 6.
Okay.
But I tend to wear them for a little while and then sell them. Yeah, I tend to wear them for a little while and then sort of stick them to the back of the wardrobe, get a new one out, or just sort of wear the ones on the stall and then change them up.
Fair enough. So was this, in terms of fashion design, was that always your calling, or
No.
did you start doing something else
No,
before?
I did fine. Well, I did, when you do an art degree, you have to do a foundation year. And I did the fashion textiles 3 weeks and decided that as a course it's really bitchy and not really my style and not really up for it. And I sort of didn't want to be stuck into just doing fashion because I'm so like really just like being creative. So I did fine art as a degree, and then at the beginning of my 3rd year was when we started doing the hoods. But I mean, I've always been like interested in fashion to a certain extent, and now obviously it's my whole life.
So you've now created a business out of this?
Yeah.
And how's that going? How's it been to sort of doing something which is started off initially as like a hobby, something fun to do, and now it's a business? Like, how's that transition been?
In terms of like, I mean, it's nice now. I mean, I think I've always been one of those people that's really open to the opportunities. I started off being a show dumper when I was 17 to 19. And once I left that, I realised that going into the creative industry, nothing's ever for certain. You've always got to make your own way. So And I think one thing my mum has always said to me is just keep your eye out for any opportunity going and just follow it, see where it's going to take you. And literally that's all we did with the hoods. We just thought, literally my first thought was, wow, more than 10 people have bought this. There's some cheap studios going, where can we take it? And it was literally just see what I can do. I was just so scared of getting to the end of uni and being like, bam, I've got to find a job. I wanted, to be already involved in something. And then we entered a competition at my uni for a business competition and won a bit of money, which enabled us to start it up. And it's only really been in the last year that I've been living off it. And when I say living off it, I mean very, sparingly living off it. But yeah, it's hard work. But when I'm doing the festival circuit and I'm off to a festival every other week and my mates are in the office, then it's worthwhile.
So who do you work with? Who's a part of your father's team?
Me.
Just you?
Just me. Yeah. I did have a business partner, but she left in February to go and be a midwife. And
that's a big change.
And I do have a sort of ongoing rotation of interns, but in terms of the making, the designing, the marketing, all of that, yeah, it's all me.
So what's been your biggest highlight today?
Highlight? Winning Entrepreneur of the Year
Woo!
2 years ago, Student Entrepreneur of the Year, was probably quite a big highlight. And just in the last sort of few weeks I've started hopefully doing a shoot with a few quite big celebrities soon. So those sort of things, but yeah.
Can you mention any names?
No, because they're not really confirmed yet. So I think I've just done a shoot with Delilah today, but I don't know. Sometimes the photos don't really, so you don't know. But yeah, hopefully I've got some exciting things. But yeah, just being able to live off. I think being able to provide for myself and say I've got a business. That's probably the biggest highlight, really.
So who's inspired you as a sort of a UK fashion designer?
As a fashion designer, well, I mean, as I said, I didn't study fashion, I'm not really very good at reading up on things, and I don't really have much time to sit there and read. So, I mean, a few of the obvious ones, like Vivienne Westwood, she's amazing. It's going to sound awful. I really don't. Oh, there's one I saw the other day, she's called Christina Lucy or something. She's amazing. She just seems to be getting involved in loads of different projects. So she does the London Fashion Week and she does the big shows and stuff, but she also does loads of projects with in Japan, and so sort of crossing art house with fashion, which is something I really want to get into as well. I literally can't remember. There is another one. I don't know.
It's gone.
That's anyone who's just sort of, anyone who's out there experimenting. I mean really experimenting, not just sort of trying to feed it or things, but really going crazy and not really caring what other people are doing and what the trends are saying, has got my vote, basically.
And just in terms of any advice that you feel that you've been given along the way, or you've learned, because I guess you've self-taught yourself loads of things. What advice could you give to aspiring designers?
Okay, first of all, you've got to be resilient. You've got to be prepared to just carry on going. Just really, you can't give up. You can't. There's going to be problems. You've just got to be always aware and ready to think of another way around doing something. If someone says no, going and selling it somewhere else. Just be really thick-skinned, basically, and be really, really determined. And don't start it if you're not 100% dedicated, because it will just take over your. For it to be a success, it's going to take over your life. And so you've got to really, really want it, basically. And also, when you're starting to design your collection and you're designing clothes, you've got to remember you've got to have the price, the 3 Ps. I think it's the 3 Ps. Price, the product, and the purse. I can't remember what the last one is. But you've got to remember that if people don't want to buy it at the price that you have to sell it at, then it's not going to work. So it's not just about designing something that looks nice and that's going to be popular. If the price isn't right, it's not going to work. So it's, you've got to think of all aspects of design, basically.
Yeah, definitely. And who's Just in terms of sort of, you spoke about your journey, you spoke about inspirations. What's been the trickiest time for you? I mean, was there, you spoke about being resilient.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't, touch wood, had any like major crises. That's, there's nothing like that stands out as one event. It's just the concept. I mean, I'm starting my 3rd year now, and I've been chronically skinned for like 2 years. I don't buy any clothes. I mean, obviously, I have the luxury of being able to make my clothes. I don't buy any clothes myself. I don't really go on any big nights out. Don't go on many holidays. I don't eat out. It's just that sort of just constantly being skinned. And when you're running your own business, it's the worry side of it, because obviously you have to work hard. You've got to organise everything. You're responsible for everything. You've got no money coming in next week. There's no one, it's not like you've got a boss to go to. That's your problem. So I think the hardest thing about running your own business is constantly worrying or constantly it being on your shoulders.
And in terms of where where we can find Fudhood's products, where can we find them? If people are interested in buying the hoods.
First of all is my website, www.foodhoods.com, and then you can also find me on ASOS Marketplace, and my boutique is Food Luxe. I also sell Brick Lane Market on a Sunday, Portobello on a Saturday, and I am stocked in a few shops around the place, such as Ad Hoc and the King's Road, and hopefully Red Mother in Brighton, Cushty in Bristol, and hopefully more shops to follow. Fingers crossed. And
you're on ASOS. You're online.
Yeah, on the new ASOS Marketplace. My boutique's in there, Food Luxe.
So what can we? Because you're working on your new collection at the moment.
Yes.
So what can we expect from this new collection?
Feathers, studs, leather, loads of leather, loads of different furs, vintage knitwears. Just really sort of quite raw, quite Navajo inspired. So yeah, lots of things going on. Loads of sequins.
Sequins is in.
Yeah, that is one thing I'd say about my brand. There's never one particular thing. We've always got as much sequins as we've got sweater, and as much leather as we've got something else. Yeah, there's always something for everyone.
So some of your hoods are kind of daring. So do you think that nowadays, in terms of young Brits that are out there, are they becoming a bit more experimental with their clothing?
Not overly, no, not really. I think in terms of my personal view of fashion at the moment is that it's boring. It's really boring. I think there's areas of it which are exciting, but I think you go to Shoreditch and it's sort of out experimental, but only within certain perimeters. Like you'll get pockets of people, but there's a real look for everywhere. And I don't think I know it sounds a bit cliche, but Lady Gaga and people like there's not, and what's the other rapper called, the American one?
Nicki Minaj.
Yeah, fair enough, they are out there, but like those are the kind of people that I aspire to be. That's the kind of real experimentation that I aspire for people to go out there and do, and not just go off what they see in the magazines. And that's why I do dial down my collections for sort of for sellable to sellable, whereas at the festivals is when I can really just let rip.